right, everyone. Without any further ado, a much-awaited session, I'd like to introduce, pardon me, I'm nervous, Mike Nelson and Matthew Smith of Really Good Emails. Take it away, gents.
Hey.
Thanks.
It's good to be here again on day 2. Thanks for joining us here. This is great. Is everybody having a good time? Hell yeah. You getting your succulent action?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I've never seen that at any conference. I expected full-scale cactus, so I was a little bit disappointed with the diminutive size, but...
Yeah. You're hard to please, I understand.
It's true.
Yeah.
Do we need to see a counselor?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So who here knows about our Feedback Friday video series on YouTube? Sweet. Okay. So go check that out. This is basically a live version of that, right? We are trying to showcase what we think are some of the best-in-class emails out there and what makes them so. So go check that out on YouTube. But in the meantime, we're stoked to kind of walk through some emails here today. I think, are we? Yep, there we go, rock and roll. Okay, so we're going to start here with one from Purple, which is a mattress company. And I think what we'll do is I'll kind of say some things that I think are looking hot, and then Mike, you can follow up.
Yeah, and I'll cover up anything that you offend people with, so we'll be good.
I think that was what we were going for, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So, all right. So right off the bat, by the way, this is a cool browser that we started using called Blisk, and makes these videos really tight, so I can show you the desktop and the mobile at the same time.
And we're not affiliated, so don't worry. We're up here like pitching Blisk. Blisk, you should buy Biz. No, it's not us. So.
But if they want to sponsor us, that's fine. All right. So one of the things right off the bat, like you heard my talk yesterday, this email gets right in there and it tells you exactly what you can do very quickly with this lead in, right? So one of the things that a lot of people miss is in the typography in an email, when you look at this sort of information right up front, like it just gets you that nice big heading. It tells you, hey, this is what we're promising you, a comfy Christmas. And then, get your, purple mattress, and then now I can go shop. That's the first thing, right? And then they give you a little bit of that feeling of the brand and what's happening with the background color of the email. This is a very simple design, but it just works, right? And then they have a great photo to kind of lead you in and make you feel excited about it. And then they begin giving you options as you move down. So, okay, it wasn't enough just to click through. I want to see more in the email. Well, tell me more. Okay, so tell us what you want. And they do that through a heading, a subheading, and then body copy, right? So just a nice cadence of, here's the most important thing, here's what you can see below. I'm hiring the heading here to tell me what's going on in the content, and then they show me that. Notice, we have a couple of different emails here to show you today, but one of the things right off the bat, they're using custom fonts and they're live, right? Like this is a big deal. This is what how the modern email industry should be working. And it goes down even into these thumbnails, right? Like they've actually taken some time to do this well. We've got 2 different options here. If we scale, or if we go over here to look at the mobile, you can see that they stack those. Right, so they've created a distinction between this initial one and the secondary. It's a simple responsive template, and this is a great example of what you can do. Incidentally, if you like stuff like this, you can go onto the site, currently at reallygoodemails.com. A lot of people don't know about it, which is a design problem on our part, but you can actually go and look at the code on this and see how they did it, and then adopt that code into your own work, right? So go and do that. But yeah, I just think overall, the email just takes me through a number of different possibilities. And each section, I have a heading, I have some copy, and then I can lead in. And the buttons are bulletproof. So I'm, a lot of flexibility. It can change. They can do multivariate testing and, try some different stuff out. I've been really impressed. And they just, get me into some different options. I'm not interested in mattresses. I want to see about this newfangled, pillow where if I put my head on it, it snuggles me up and maybe it like teaches me something at night. I don't know. But looks pretty amazing. I want to rest my head. That's a great example of a CTA that's not just, shop now or buy here. Like, they can test this, see if, oh yeah, I'm into rest. I want to do that, right? these are the kinds of things that are interesting to us. So they use this simple framework, and they repeat it per section, and I think that's really effective. What you think, bud?
So, whoa, sorry about that. So what I'm looking at is you've bypassed a lot of the amazing copy that they've gone through. So you missed the Spice Girls reference up here. Did anyone else catch that? Tell us what you want, what you really, really want.
I'm really lame.
Yeah. So not only does this have like good visual aesthetic, but it is easy to read, and it connects with the reader because that's their demographic. Someone who is probably in their late 20s to early 40s-ish.
Or like an older bearded dad who thinks about Spice Girls a lot, right?
No.
Oh.
Mm-mm. I don't let my children listen to that kind of trash. Then, like you said, the copy on the CTAs are really good. The sheet, yeah, where'd that go? I got some giggles out of the sheet, yeah, right? I really like this cross-through.
Mm-hmm.
It's all live. That's a nice touch.
Right.
That's not hard to code, but it's really good visually. Do you want to pick it apart a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So first off, do you see this gradient on the background? How it got lighter as the further we go down?
Yeah, that's pretty tight.
That's a really nice touch.
Super subtle. I'd say it's too subtle because
Yep.
I didn't notice it until you pointed it out.
So with the background gradient, or with the background, if it was stronger, you'd probably see the difference between this area and the background. I feel like this is too close. It's like your brain's trying to figure out, is that part of a background? Is it not part of the background?
So this is like, we'll bookmark this for a second. One of the things that is important as you think about design is this area called the uncanny valley, right? So things need to be different enough than each other in design to create distinction. So sometimes you'll see somebody will have a heading and a subheading, and they're too close to each other, like they're very similar, and so they end up, it feels like a mistake. It's not very clearly a heading and a subheading, or a heading and body copy. So in order to create better distinction and get over that uncanny valley, make sure that there's enough difference. And this minor shade difference is probably part of that.
That's a nice tweetable quote, the uncanny valley. I've never heard that one before.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think this is a really good job. The photos are pretty clear and crisp. I just scanning it, after I got to about the first offer, I was like, whoa, why are there more offers? Why are there more CTAs? And I kind of get this, like, if you're not interested in this, maybe you'll be interested in this. If you're not interested in that, maybe you'll be interested in this.
Right.
And yesterday we talked about just a lot of CTAs to just appease the masses, whereas if I'd been on their site before, maybe there's some type of behavior that they could target for me being a pillow who wants to talk to me at night.
Right. Ideally, you get enough information from some browser interactivity or some cookies that were set or something where you're actually segmenting, and you're maybe offering two things, like the mattress and the sheets, or the mattress and the pillows. And you can say there are more offers in a small way and lead people off to the site. But again, instead of like throwing everything at people, try and be more direct, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then look at that footer. Ooh, so simple. Like, I love those.
Yeah.
Nice finish.
So one thing I would throw out there, like this, Mike talked about yesterday how a lot of footers are overly legal, right? So you can see like they cover some of their basic stuff all in here, and that's what you need for an email that maybe is covering travel or where there are going to be greater legal implications. You can just put a legal link in there, and it links off to your terms of service and things like that. One thing I would say in a lot of emails like this is the finish moment, right? So we just had a fantastic meeting with our buddy Eric over at Litmus, and man, we had a great time. And as we were leaving, like, it was important to me to let him know I heard all the great advice and ideas that he had to share, and I really thanked him for his time, and I wished him well in like being a dad, because we're all dads, right? That was a moment that was really important to like sum up the entire meeting, right? And like have gratitude about it. And a lot of times, like, that kind of relational moment can happen in a footer, but people just kind of are like, oh, okay, see ya. and they don't leave it with that little note, right? So if you can do something, and like on really good emails, if you see our footers, we add like really goofy copy, like sort of faux legal, and it's just a ton of fun, right? It's just a little treat that somebody can find there to like finish the conversation. So lots of ways you can treat that.
Yeah, and also yesterday, Kelly talked about putting Easter eggs at the bottom of theirs. So sometimes they have like cat gifts and other things too.
So put Easter eggs on my bottom. No? Okay.
That's a pretty good one that we didn't even practice. I'm proud of you for that.
Thanks, sweetie. All right, cool. All right, so you ready to switch gears?
Yeah, let's
okay.
go.
So we're going to switch over here to withings. And one of the things that I think, again, is working fantastically here is they're celebrating their brand by making sure that they're using custom typography. But again, it's all live text. Note here that on the desktop, it's much easier for me to read in this environment at this size. This size in a mobile context is too small, and so they've done a great job of making it more adequately sized. If I could change anything, I would probably make this card a little bit larger, but I do like that they have sized things appropriate to mobile. So I think what they're doing with this white space is trying to give it more attention, like bring your attention to it. You'll notice, like when you go to an art gallery, if you want to create more importance around something, there's a balance to this, but you actually can add white space around it, and it can give it a sense of like, okay, pay attention to this thing. So think about using white space as a tool to create importance around your content. Moving down, one thing that I think is probably a little bit of a weakness in this one that I would improve is just increasing the size of these CTAs. But one thing I really do like is the consistency of colors, right? So yesterday I talked about a point system for differences. How do you create as few differences in a design as possible? So, at first glance, I think that we're maybe looking at 3 or 4 colors here tops, and very few different types of font sizes, etc. So that makes it so that the cognitive load for me reading the email is very quick. I can get to it, right? So I'm able to move down. I'm able to see, okay, they've got some exclusive withings offers. Nice way of handling different layouts. Let's go see how they handle that in mobile. Really nice, And they've just, had this fantastic way of switching around this interesting padded device. I have no idea what that is. But,
What's up with us and sleeping things? Do we need sleep?
I'm so tired. I had an inappropriate thought, and I put it away.
Good job.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I'm learning. All right. So anyway, it's a nice way of handling some of these, responsive moments. This is a great example. Again, go and look at the code, see how it's done, right? So one of the things that Really Good Emails hopes to do is the web is amazing. You can just go and you can right-click and you can see how people built their code, but email is hidden inside an inbox. So we're trying to expose that because for me, that's how I learned how to design, and I want more of that in our industry, in the email industry, right? Another thing here that I loved is just this kind of last-minute piece. It is, let's build some trust here at the end and talk a little bit about the things that are important to us. And I think that kind of stuff is a great way, again, to finish the conversation, right? Not a fantastic fan of like tiny little footer, but if you're a little mouse and you can read that, that's cool. Your turn, my man.
So again, summing up the value propositions is really good, especially if you know the background of withings. I don't know if they're in the audience for submitting this, but one thing is they were with Nokia, and then they came out of Nokia, and then they're now withings, and there's a lot of like, what's going to happen with support and everything else. And I think that's just like, oh, by the way, we still support you. You still get these offerings. It's nice. 2-year warranty. Don't worry, everything you buy here is with confidence.
Yep.
When I'm looking at this email, some of the things that stood out to me, I love emojis. Like, it just adds just a little bit of, you have to be, of course, you have to be cognizant of how you use emojis, right? You don't want to use emojis if your target demographic is like 79 years old and they don't know what that emoji means,
prejudice.
Sorry. Yeah. Stereotype. I take that back. I love older people that are older than me. I have lots of them in my life. And so one of the other things that I want to pick out here, though, is this really hard call to action. Buy now seems not so soft, especially if I don't know what this product is. I don't know maybe the Pulse HR or the Steel HR are. To me, I don't have enough background on that product to understand why I would buy that right now. I know it's cool, you gave me $20 off, but is that enough of incentive for me to buy it at this moment?
Right.
So I would have gone something with like, check this out, or see how it looks, or
Yeah, I like that. Like, see what the watch looks like for you, or
Right.
something like that.
yeah, there's a whole thing on hard CTAs versus soft CTAs, and there are times where you can do a hard CTA, but you have to really teach the reader and lead them into that path before you give them a hard CTA.
Yep. It's good.
So other than that, I love just like, oh, sorry. I love the 2 boxes on the third. I feel like that's a really good design element.
Yeah, one thing that this does visually too is as you're moving down from a centered situation, this is something people get wrong all the time, is you start centered, and then in order to switch between a centered layout and a left-aligned layout, for instance, you need some kind of break. You need a rule, or you need something like this right here that breaks that. So what they've done here is they move into this 2-column layout, and then they go into this blocker, this wider layout, and that helps move things down, and then they go back into centered. But if they wanted to, they could actually have potentially gone left aligned in this area, and it would work because they had the break, right? But a lot of people will go from left alignment right into center, or vice versa, and your mind doesn't work well with that. It creates confusion about where am I supposed to go next, and that disorientation has a subtle way of saying I'm not trustworthy, or not the reader, but the business, right? If I can't create alignment, stability, some of these kinds of things. So that's the visual language and how you can think about it.
As we talk about centered, one of the things that I see, if this was, let's say, 6 lines, centering that would be very difficult to read, right? So there's got to be a point where, I think you know a little bit more about this, but when your text is long enough, you should not be centering your text anymore. You should be left aligning your text.
That's right. If you haven't read, it's actually much more easy to read than you'd think, but it's Robert Bringhurst, Elements of Typographical Style. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Believe me, that's a good page turner.
I think that's a little sarcastic.
There is sarcasm.
Okay.
Just the title alone was like, oh, this is a little pretentious, but go ahead.
Or amazing.
Okay.
It's amazing. And another one is there's a similar one around web typography, and I can't remember. Richard Rudder wrote that book, and also very good, and probably even more applicable to this. So highly recommend that, just to be able to understand, like at a very basic level, just to go and do a little bit of research about how to handle typography. That is the core of email, right? It is using text to describe what's in your email, and to be able to communicate that clearly so that people can read it quickly and get on with their day. Like that's the center, right? So start there.
One last thing on this is the avoidance of hard edges.
Mm-hmm.
So pointy things, I mean, MacBooks have rounded edges. Steve Jobs was very big on keeping things rounded for a reason, because there's a fear of pointy objects. And that has actually become a very big trend in design, is where you have images, you're now rounding the edge. You'll see this in Pinterest, you'll see this all over the place. They go edge to edge on this, so they don't need to. But if those images or that block was probably consolidated more, they probably would have rounded those edges.
Yep. So, and on that point, another thing that you can think about is a lot of times a rounded edge tends to, as a web pattern, communicate tappability or clickability, right? Whereas a flat edge with just corners can, not always, but can communicate that it's just an image or it's a background image. So being aware of the patterns that you're developing in your design is really important. To the visual language that you're creating, you're teaching, not just at the email level, like just one email, but also brand wide, right? So I think Ted yesterday talked about design systems, and this is a great example of like a strong design system in one email, and then continuing that so that you're teaching your customers how to relate, what to do.
Right.
Cool. All right, we'll head over. Actually, I want to go to the Apple one first, and we'll finish up with the other.
How are we on time? Do we have a timer over here?
Yeah, we've got 9 minutes, 56 seconds until the bomb goes off.
Okay, sounds good.
Shoot, probably shouldn't have said that. All right, so Apple has been doing a lot of interesting things for a while. I was pretty hard on them a couple of years ago because consistently, apparently with their like $80 billion, they weren't able to do live text, and I thought that was weak sauce, but they, with this email, are doing more. Now, this is still an image. That's still an image, but like a lot more, right? And I think probably they're using good alternate text. But like there's no reason even this needs to be done as an image. But they are doing some really interesting layout techniques here, which is kind of a new fad, but I think they're doing it well here. Lots of nice white space, but good balance overall. This is the kind of like exploration I expect from Apple. And it's fun to see them trying some new things. So notice here, they're not doing rounded corners on these edges. They're choosing an aesthetic that makes sense for these images. But in some of their CTAs, I think you'll usually see that. So this is just a nice way of moving people down through these gorgeous products. And the map of images doing this is going to give me a little bit more of a flow, right? If it's just in a stack, then the opportunity is for me to scan very quickly. So this zigzag pattern is slowing things down to kind of get my interest. And that might work for your brand or it might not. It's just something that you need to give a thought to. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is a great example. They're essentially using black and white and then imagery and blue links. And so in many respects, that is one of the simplest possible designs you can think of, but it's working very effectively. Notice Apple agrees with me, and they've put a rule here between the left alignment and the centered. They didn't consult me on that. They should have, but I'll forgive it this time. But they did a great job. So that's the kind of example I'm talking about. And then they finish, I actually really appreciate this when you put a little bit of your navigation or navigation that would be appropriate to what you're doing in a shopping context. And then, again, like I just think this is really unnecessary to have here. It doesn't serve the customer. Like that's why it's unnecessary. It's not unnecessary because it looks bad. Like that's not enough of a reason. But it's not serving me. I'm not doing anything with it. It's serving them, serving the lawyers, and there's a better way to do this. So
yeah, I mean, this legalese is there kind of for a bait and switch, right? So iPhone XS and iPhone XS pricing after trade-in. So they're like, you can get this price, but really you can't unless you've traded in, right? And to me, it's like
plus your child.
To me, it's more like, well, why don't you just say get it now? Like, why do you have to lead with that fake price if not everyone that receives this email would qualify for that price?
Sure.
To me, that's kind of the personalization that they should have gone for. I'm a big iPhone user. They should know what kind of iPhone I have currently and be able to understand, do I use it often? Okay, and maybe give me some qualifiers that give me that price, or just leave it out. They say buy here, they buy here. Why do they have to have, I mean, the title of the subject line was the price, so they have to kind of prove it, but still, you still have that asterisk there.
There's a good point you bring up, which is they actually have a lot of data on me, and they should be able to know, what phone I have or what phones I've had, based on the phones you've had, based on the things that you seem to enjoy. Since you've taken, 200 billion photos this year, it seems like you'd appreciate this one with the better camera, things like that. So I think you're right. There's probably an opportunity for better personalization.
Just seeing how this zigzag worked as you go through, it's just one column. But you see that you have that nice image, you've got the header, you've got the smaller text, you've got the call to action.
Yep.
This inverted
Very
pyramid
consistent.
works really well. One thing I do like on this one, I know we're running out of time, but this hover state, that's a nice touch.
Yep.
I don't know if it actually adds to people clicking on it, but it's a good one. You don't get these you get that down here and a few other places, but I always like a nice little surprise when I hover over things and it tells me, oh yeah, I can actually click on that.
That's right. Yeah, and we're seeing a little bit more about that as we have more interactivity in email and more with the possibility of AMP. I'm actually curious how many people are reading about and interested in AMP from Gmail.
Oh, good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Keep researching. I think to me, this is how we get Microsoft Outlook to really change their game by showing that there's real economic value in changing the code base of email. So it's good.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, my man. I'll switch over here. All right, so this is a great example of an email that I think did a fantastic job in their design. Really moody, which is appropriate for Hawthorne. They're dark. They don't have edges on the sides of their email. It's very atmospheric. Really nice typography. Great, way of breaking the border here on the top of the image. Unique and sort of fun way, leading that down into some imagery and illustration, and just a lot of fun. So there's this initial sort of what are we going to do, personal care tailored for you, and they're telling me a story as we go down, right? And giving me this heading, body copy, sense of cadence as I move down through it. They get me excited about some social validation from GQ, Forbes, and Vanity Fair, and then they finish with a buy now. So two huge things that are hard for me about this email. The design is really strong, but it's all images, right? And do you all remember when Target was sued for accessibility compliance? That's got to happen. Like, I've actually been trying to talk to accessibility lawyers and others about how do we get some people in trouble. I know that sounds terrible, but like, how else are we going to move this forward, right? So
You're just looking to collect. You just want some money.
how would I get money out of it?
I don't know.
Yeah. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Vote of confidence. But we've got to move this forward, right? Like, I've got sight-impaired friends. My own eyes aren't fantastic. And one of the things I'm really interested in is, just all of us being able to have access to like a JAWS reader or an accessibility reader so we can understand what our emails sound like, right, to somebody who can't see them. Some of these kinds of things. So I had a neighbor when I was living in Philadelphia, and this was his experience. And so I have a soft spot for that. So this is one of those things. It's a great email, but even with alt text, it's a really minified experience, and we can do better. The next thing is that right up here, if I don't want to read this whole email, you're forcing me into this situation where I really need to. Now, I can click through on this image, at least that is there, but there's no reason you couldn't put a CTA right here and then say, too long, didn't read, here's what you'd need, or you want to dig into our really interesting story below, like lead people in, guide them into what's down below the email, and keep going,
Yeah.
What about you?
This also follows some trends that we've been seeing in the last 6 months. Number one, illustrations have just kind of ballooned into everyone's doing it. I think Harry's was really the first to really kind of, and MailChimp has been doing it for a while. But brands are now moving to this illustration because it gives them more character.
That's right.
And it's like, oh, I'm actually a human. This wasn't created by some stock photography company. You can clearly tell, or if they did, maybe they paid not so much for it.
Pause there real quick. So stock photography is a great thing to bring up. Stock photos do not convert, right? Like the experience is that, again, this is that uncanny valley. We understand naturally as humans when we see that we've either seen it before or we've seen that pose before. We feel it's inauthentic, and that inauthenticity creates a problem in the viewer. So anytime that you can use, like, there's a great site called Stocksy, STOCKSY.com. They have photos that are a lot more visually authentic than most. And then there are places you can get illustration. But honestly, just being able to like go to Dribbble or go to Behance and find an illustrator and have a budget for somebody to be able to provide some custom illustrations that make your email feel more authentic, if that fits with your brand.
Yeah. And the last one is quotes. We're seeing a lot more companies putting quotes into their emails just to prove out that social validation.
Yeah.
Customer quotes, here you've got PR quotes. So as you buy, you feel more comfortable with what you're getting. And they follow that up with the buy now. So what they're doing is they're leading you through this journey with images, with character and personality, with telling you how cool they are, and then you feel confident that when you hit that buy now button, you'll probably have a less bounce rate.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. Cool. Well, we're out of time. Thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
Hey, lights out.